Okay, what's going on out there, YouTube family? This is Samuel Leggett here, representing Team JVS. We are about to unpack for you guys The Boys, Season 2, Episode 1 through 4. Just to give you guys insight, this is a spoiler review, so anything goes. If you hadn't seen the episodes, you owe it to yourselves to go and check it out. To be honest with you, we've seen the whole entire season.
Oh,
Are we
shebang.
going to talk about episodes 5 through 8? No. We're going to leave that for another part 2. But
Whew.
it's all about to go down. All right, what's going on, gentlemen? Introduce yourselves and let's pick this apart.
All right, I'm Keaton. I've been with JVS for a bit now. You might remember me for some of them Game of Thrones videos. Yeah, I'm just ready to get started. This season's been bonkers, man.
Yeah, I'm Jorge. I guess just helping out here, moonlighting for a little bit. And definitely, yeah, I couldn't say it better. This season was phenomenal. So I can't wait to just jump in on these first 4 episodes and go ham on it, basically.
Yeah. So going off of season 1, the way that ended with Homelander dropping this A-bomb on us, that not only was Butcher's wife still alive, but that he had a kid by her. And then, like, we're just kind of like, what does that really mean? Honestly, Butcher's got to be dead. And the first episode unpacks the rest of the group without Butcher, just trying to survive. What was it about the first 4 episodes that really hit you guys that this is better than season 1? I think that's a good question to start with.
Well, like the big thing for me was, like, before, it was one of these things like, okay, it's this secret group of guys and everyone's wondering who they are and what's going to happen. What are they trying to do with the 7? The second episode, like, it straight up, like, the first episode of this season straight up just lets you know, after Homelander burnt Homegirl's eyes out, they're the ones that got blamed for it, and now they're on the run because she is dead. Like, Elizabeth Shue's character is, like, gone. Like, what we saw, it wasn't a figment or anything. She's just out, and now all of these guys are completely on the run. Meanwhile, everything's going bonkers on the rest of the planet because now we have super terrorists. Like, right then, they let you know, like, it's getting real. It's not a game. We got villains now. Like, we had villains. We're about to let you know we really have villains. And they throw you for a looky-loo because you're thinking, oh, they have super terrorist villains, when in reality, they're just about to introduce another villain, but not from the direction that you're thinking.
Yep. Yeah. They definitely threw the wool over our eyes, because even that opening shot, like, Black Noir just murks. Just countless people, like women, men, it didn't matter. And then just decided to play with a bunny
when he got
in front of this kid. I was like, bro, like, this man is in. It draws to home that the heroes are the most dangerous, volatile, and messed up people in this entire show. Absolutely. And it's funny because even when you think about Starlight, the longer she is in this world with them, I'm starting to see that she's starting to go off the rails on certain levels as well. Like, there's different boundaries she's more than willing to go down. And that the first season, that was not this same character. Now her beliefs are gone. Like, she has no F's to give, and I don't know, man. Like, she's becoming them.
That's how toxic they are. Like, she joins the 7 and gets sexually assaulted the day she joins. Like, come on. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's also for me like a crazy thing, because even throughout these first 4 episodes, and you kind of see a lot of the deep, and for me, I'm like, man, that from an outside point of view, especially with like society now, with like the Me Too movement and all that, and you kind of see just how vile he is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And and all this, but yet they're still pursuing with his character line. Like, I thought once they kind of kicked him out, it was going to be it, but you kind of start seeing him going through this transformation in a sense, which for me, I thought was interesting, going through that for sure. And then, I kind of put Starlight in almost Hughie's, like season 1 status, where he's just this innocent person who turns into, at the end of the day, like one of the boys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. From the moment he kills Translucent, it's like, okay, it's on.
Yeah, and you're kind of seeing that transformation with Starlight, where she's having her own battle with that. So for me, that was definitely something that was dope this season.
Yeah, because even in the first episode, like, she opens up in singing the song for Translucent, and just working with Homelander, and it's like he was looking at this on his freaking phone, like, what is going on with the world right now? And she's doing it to keep her covered, but she's also playing ball. Like, she's playing the game. And Maeve said from jump, like, you're not going to get out, and it's even funnier what they're doing with Maeve as a character, because I forget what episode was it that Homelander did the unthinkable to her. I think it was episode 4. Or was
that was episode 4 when he did that, when they were on with Maria Menounos, I think.
They
were at the show.
Yeah, it was around episode 2 that, Maeve, she realized her girl, she had, I think her appendix had to get taken out. She was worried about her. So she went and visited her in the hospital. She told her, what's at stake. This is why I'm not around you. And of course, Homelander hears all and sees all. And he decides to use that to just make her life a living hell. And he just outs her in front of everyone. And now, whereas before she was like a tortured soul that just didn't have anybody, now she's being forced, in this kind of situation all over again. And it's a downward spiral. I think they're doing a lot of good things with the character Maeve, where I think she wasn't really used well as well as she could have been in the first season. Outside of the airplane sequence, this season, they're really kind of like, okay, what does this really mean? Because she's strong, but nobody crosses Homelander.
Right.
Nobody.
And that was one of the things that I really, really loved about this season. It's that the first season focused so much on who the boys were. And this second season, they did let us know like some more information about the boys. But at the same time, we really got to know more about the 7 and who they were and like how they think and what they're going through. And so I absolutely loved how they did that, because obviously they're gonna probably they're gonna be building towards this, the boys versus the 7 thing, but you're getting both sides backstories instead of one side's backstory. And so I really love how they went in depth and like started telling you more about Maeve. And like, even though we hate the Deep and it's fun watching him suffer now, like you're still getting his backstory and the way he thinks, and you catch up with A-Train, and it's just, I love how they're even though they introduce them and let you know, hey, by the way, these are horrible people, here's why. And I think that's a really important thing to know, because there's nothing like a villain with a motive,
And I think even to that point, like, there's nobody good in this real series.
Right.
Everybody is compromised. Everybody is killed at this point. Everyone has lied at this point.
Yes.
Everybody is completely tainted. But I can't not bring up the 2 big elephants in the room that I think that are just knocking it out of the park as far as characters this season. And I'm talking about Homelander. My man is killing it. Like, he's always done a really amazing job, but this season, like, I felt like they were like, you know what? Whatever filter you had, remove it. Like, I want you to go off. Just let your mind just go.
Man versus Dark Side, like, hold nothing back. Yeah.
But so let's go ahead and start off with just how Homelander kind of comes into this specific season. Like, his woman obsession is gone.
Yeah.
He goes and tries to find milk. At this point now, her understudy, he's hired her on to kind of be his counter. And the very first scene that really kind of traumatized me, I think,
oh gosh, yes,
was the blind gymnastics Daredevil clone. It seemed like he had a heart of gold. He seemed like he was just like, I'm good to be. I'm in the game, coach. And like this man, this man legit decides, okay, well, he's a liability, so I'm gonna crush his only capability of the world, which is his ears. And I was like, yo, that's the most evil, sadistic thing to you. Not even just killing him, like you want to make him suffer.
Right.
And like I was like, wait,
blind spot, man.
That was the clap that ended his life.
Like I paused it. I paused it when I saw it because I'm like, I knew Homelander was a bastard, but like, wow, like, and he's impossible to please. Yep. And it's so, I love how they did it because they made it like, listen, Homelander is in charge. He's large. He's in charge. He's impossible to please. And it's his way or the highway. And they're setting it up so that someone else can enter and he can be jealous of the attention that they're getting. Like it's so well done. It's impeccable. I loved it.
Yeah. And shouts out to Ashley, who's the understudy. Like, bruh, I couldn't be Ashley. It would be no way I would work underneath that man. She was stressing out to the point her hair started falling out. Yeah. And rightfully so, because there's nothing he wouldn't do. I mean, the only thing that he wouldn't do is compromise his appeal to other people and the way that he aesthetically looks. But like she knew she's expandable. She's terrified most of the episode. But segue into
I want to feel bad for her. I do. I want to feel bad for Ashley, but at the same time, it's like she's part of the big business. Like she is. Like that's the thing. Like it's honestly reminds me. It's like Anne Hathaway's character at the beginning of Devil Wears Prada. You know what I mean? Like, hey, this is what I want. I want to move up to the top, and it's going to take, I don't know, probably Homelander burning her eyes out at some point or something for her to be like, oh yeah, maybe these aren't the good people. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not doing the right thing. Sorry, I know you're trying to segue into Stormfront.
No. Yeah, so Stormfront. Well, from the first episode, what was y'all's impressions? First and second episode, what was y'all's impressions of Stormfront? Because she left a different impression until the very end of the second episode. So
okay, so as soon as they said her name, I never read the comic. I had some people hit me up on Twitter that had read the comic, which shout out to them. But the first thing I thought of was there was an old school like website back in the day called they couldn't even get anyone to host them because they were like actual like it was bad. And oh god, I hope YouTube doesn't like ban us for me just saying that, right? But like but yeah, like and so my first thought was, interesting name.
Yeah.
That was just my first thought. And then she comes in and she's just like a social media phenom doing it for the likes and all that. And at first I was like, nah, she might not be terrible because honestly, my first thought I was like, oh, she's West Coast, like she's probably cool, right? Too bad. And that was my first impression. I was concerned about the name, and I'm like, oh, Portland, that's not too bad.
Yeah. What about you?
I did like how she was introduced in the show, and for me, I kind of took it because I've never read the comics either. So I looked at more as this is going to be almost like your social media like darling in a way, you know, like and just someone who your typical rebel where you just, you know, at any point in time she just does what she wants and she doesn't care.
Yeah.
You know, her standing up to Homelander, I thought that was, for me, I was just like, oh, this season's gonna be twisted in a way. And then you know,
because I appreciate it. Like, I really appreciated like her standing up to Homelander, but at the same time, I was just picking up on the abrasiveness. Like, she even when she stood up to Homelander, she rubbed you like sandpaper covered with glue. Like, it was just something about it that just felt yucky. Like, it's just like, ugh. It's like the person you hope doesn't come to your party.
No, like, even with me, like, I'd heard stories of like the terrible Stormfront who's worse than Homelander. I was like, you know what, low key, like, I mean, she got a better up on him, you know. I was like, she seems like a millennial, just like a douche to be a douche. She's sitting there throwing out Pepe Longstocking references. I was like, what's wrong with her? You know what I'm saying? And then you get to episode 2. And episode 2, the big part about episode 2 that was really key was that Kimiko realized that her brother was not only in the vicinity, but he also was a supe as well. And so they were trying to track him down. They were trying to protect him as best they could. And lo and behold, they find out that Stormfront is a psychopath. In episode 3, not only does she kill him, break his arms up, but she is blatantly, disrespectfully, racially messed up. Like, she is a sick individual.
When she entered that apartment complex,
oh my god!
I'm like, she's still going after him, but you just see random bodies flying out and people just randomly dying, and I'm like,
like, it's not like they're even in her way. She's just killing them.
And the thing that was so crazy about it, and it was horrible, because I'm sitting there watching and I'm like, man, she just does not care. And then at one point I started looking and I'm like, I think those were those all people of color? Like, I think those were all people of color. And then when she killed him, the words that she said, which I won't repeat.
Oh man, which I'm not gonna repeat.
But the words that she said, and one thing that I thought was really interesting was how she killed him, because he had talked about how he got his hands broken protecting his sister, and then she did it to him before she killed him. And when she said that, I was like, huh. It was like that. It was that light bulb that you hope didn't go off. Like,
you're like, okay, this is a worst case scenario. Not only all the suits nearly invulnerable skin, all have super strength, and all of them are, you know, psychologically volatile. But what do you do when you got one that's not just volatile, but just like blatantly racist and destructive? And
I'm like, and it's so funny because it's so difficult to not think about the current political situation we're in now. And I'm like, oh man, last thing we need is a superhero that hates black people. Like, Jesus, like, come on, not now, no.
But it's funny because the first time I watched it, I didn't catch up on that, you know, immediately. And what I caught up on is after she killed him, obviously Homelander landing, and he was like, this one was supposed to be mine. And she was just all cutesy, like, oh, you snooze, you lose. And then the second time
Angelica Pickles, like, what is this?
Yeah, and the second time I watched it, I was like, that's when I noticed, and I'm like, oh, she's just killing all the minorities. I'm like, they all dead.
Yeah.
And I think there was a sign that it was like 57 dead or something.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I'm like, she is she's not who I thought she was.
Right.
Yeah. And then the even messed up part about it is when she went and had that speech. And that's what I was kind of like, oh no, she got to die, bro. Like she was like not only taking all the air from Homelander and getting all the credit, but she's getting the credit for murdering people. You know what I'm saying? Like he murders people because they get in his way. But she blatantly murdered him to have fun with it and get what she wanted. And I was like, you know what? She got to go. Like there's not even any redemption for this character.
But it is wild how when throughout that whole, I think it was between episode 3 and 4, you kind of start, like in my mind watching it, it's like, who do I really want leading the 7? Like you got this psycho woman, or do you go with like Homelander? And you really like you start kind of feeling like in that weird thing where it's like, well, I guess she's okay because she's not as evil as Homelander. But then when you start watching it like again and watching it deep, you're like, wait a minute. You're like, this could go bad either way.
And that's the thing, like, because with with what they give you with the backstory and everything, basically you realize it's like, okay, Homelander's this way because of how he was raised.
Yeah.
Homelander's this way because basically he was like an only child to a fault. Like, I'm an only child, but he's an only child to a fault, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oof, he's the wrong person with superpowers because he doesn't like to share. He didn't have brothers and sisters. Stormfront's just a straight up like that. You don't really come back from that. It's like, oh, like you can't. And so it's like, well, what do you choose? Do you choose the bratty kid with superpowers or with superpowers? Right? You take the bratty kid, right? Like I said before, Angelica Pickles. Like you take the bratty kid with superpowers over super every time. Like every time. So it was so interesting because I'm like, wow. I thought Homelander was as bad as it could get. And then they were like, nah, you wrong. And she's still a social media darling, which is straight stressful.
Yeah. I mean, even like I said, when you got into like episode 4 and like A-Train, he had kind of had like a small little conversation with him, but she like legit was kind of like talking to him like, oh, you about to join the collective. Oh yeah, I used to be a part of that. They let everybody in now. And he was like, yo, what you trying to say, dog?
Right.
Like,
you can see it in his eyes. And
the way that they wrote that,
they wrote
that very, very well. Because if you're not, how do I put this without sounding bad? If you don't understand the situation, you wouldn't even caught the reference. You wouldn't even understand what was actually happening. Like you would have been like, oh, she's calling him trash because he's getting, kicked out. Like, no. That is not why. Like, look at her face. Look at her mannerisms.
No, she doesn't like chocolate. Yeah.
And he was like, oh nah, like something up with her, bro. I want to keep my job, but something wrong with you.
And this is what I'm talking about. The season is written so well. Why am I feeling bad for A-Train right now? Like I'm like,
exactly.
Yeah, he's trash and he should be kicked out of the 7, but not because he's black.
So, and that's funny because I think this is the same episode that they were doing. Like the episode 4 was when they were doing the movie or whatever, and they were doing rehearsing scenes.
Yes.
Because they kind of put like a really messed up spin on Maeve. That was the most stereotypical, way of doing that. And the funny thing is the way that they did the line for A-Train. A-Train was like, bro, I ain't saying this line. I ain't quitting. Ashley was like, look, you can either one go down with the ship or you can go above the ship. Figure it out. And he said his line. It was a pretty dope line, actually. It was actually really well done and paced. I started to feel bad for him. And that's good writing. Even, you know what? We didn't even talk about the Deep. Because the first 2 episodes of Deep.
The thing is, I love watching the Deep take L's. Like, after the very first episode of the season, of the show, I've been loving just watching him take L after L. Like, I felt bad for that dolphin, but I was more happy about that dolphin dying because it upset the deep. Like, I loved watching him take L's. The whale, loved it because it hurt his feelings. Like,
the whale
despised the deep, like absolutely despised him. And so, like, I knew it had to be good writing for them to keep him in this show and to make him interesting somehow. And they did, because they were like, oh, how do we do this? Oh, make him join a church cult.
Yeah. Dude, but how about his that one, I think it was episode 3 or 2, his little like trippy experience that he ended up taking.
Episode 2.
Patton Oswalt.
Yo, that was insane.
That was actually really dope. I'm not gonna lie, that was a great scene. He killed it.
And that's the thing, because it's like the writers in this season have done, and I agree with you guys, like a phenomenal job. Because it's interesting. Like for me, the thing that I was looking most forward to this season was kind of seeing how the boys were going to be acting. And after like Butcher, because for the first 2 episodes, he wasn't even, he was barely there. He was a glimpse. And you started kind of seeing them forming a little bit better and seeing like the hierarchy there. And for me, that's when I was like, oh, this is going to get dope. You know? And it's interesting because this whole time, we've barely talked about any of them. It's just been all about the 7. Yeah, it kind of shows you kind of how interesting, you know, like, because for me, it, you know, at least these first 4 episodes kind of checked everything off, in terms of getting, you know, kind of this Stormfront versus Homelander. You get to see a lot more of, for me, like Frenchie is one of my favorite characters on the show.
Yeah,
and you kind of get to see him and what's her name? Kamiko, yes. You kind of see them kind of, you know, starting to form this relationship. And it's such a stroke because he just wants to understand her. And obviously there's no understanding there. And then when he kisses her in episode 4, for that like split second, I was like, oh, this can go really well. Or he's about
really bad.
Yeah. Bad timing. I mean, we all been there, but like bad timing. Like, it was like, now she ain't trying to make out with somebody right now. Like, dog. Like, she just watched her brother get killed by super. Like, nah.
Yeah. You're like, wrong time.
I don't want to go on a date right now. Like, this is not the time. This is not the time. Don't turn the Barry White off. Like, nah. And it's incredibly, like, I can't say enough how well written the show is, especially pushing the line. Like, one thing I can honestly say is that I remember just watching the first season and being like, this is incredibly violent. This is the most violent superhero show I have ever seen. Like, this tops the previous one, which honestly I feel like the most violent superhero series I had seen up to that point was like Punisher Warzone. Like, I just remember Punisher Warzone being like disgustingly violent. And this, and like I remember season 1, like Pop Claw and the landlord, and being like, all right, I gotta pause it. This is brutal. And then from the very first episode, it's like, oh yeah, she was gonna be a main character. What she's oh wow, her head just exploded. That well, okay. Okay.
Yeah, that scene, matter of fact, in the first episode, I was sitting there watching it. I don't know if I released my reaction. I'm gonna release it later, but I was sitting there watching. I was like, just really focused in on. I was like, oh man, her nose bleeding. Then I was like, oh shoot, what the fuck? What just happened, dog? Like, it threw me off, because then I was like, I felt this feeling of fear, because I was like, yo, any of them about to get a head popped off. Like, I didn't know what was gonna go down any of the time.
I was confused because I was like, did I didn't hear a gun? Like, did something, like, what just where'd her head go? Like, what just happened?
So yeah, I mean, I definitely we gotta try to round this out, but I wanted to talk about Butcher, because Butcher's insane. But they do so much with Carl Urban's character in this season that I didn't think his character could go. And they also found a way of tying in Hughie in a way that was even more well done as well. But in episode 4 specifically, you know, he went back to try to get his girl. And it was just very hard to watch because you got to think about, like, it's been 8 years.
Yeah.
And like the first time he saw her again, like he distanced himself. He didn't know where he was. And he was like, I got to go find my girl, you know? And he found her again. And it was like, yo, I don't want you to leave. Like, we need to go. We need to get the sun out. And like, she was like, nah, this can't be a thing. So I was just curious, what would you guys' takes on Butcher and Hughie from episode 1 to 4? Because they're both going through a lot of different things. Both of them can't have what they want, which is, of course, you know, Hughie wants to have a life with Stormfront. He wants to keep her safe. But she's not safe. He's not safe.
Starlight, not Stormfront.
Oh, sorry. Starlight. Yeah, well, we are not going to go down that road.
Let's hope not.
That was, man, jeez. And of course, Butcher wants to get his girl out, and he cannot. You know, and it's just a very interesting paradigm shift from the first season, where it's like Butcher was trying to get Hughie to a point. It's like, you know, accept the reality of Supes and be hard and this and that, don't care about nobody, you know, and it's like it's the complete opposite now.
Well, one thing that I loved was that in the first season they set the boys up as the good guys and the 7 up as the bad guys. Then in this season, when they come back around, they're like, yes, the 7 are still bad, but the boys are actually not the greatest people in the world. Because what you see is Butcher is like, okay, yeah, first season we saw him fighting against the corrupt 7. But now when we see Butcher, we realize, okay, Butcher has a problem. Butcher just hates people with superpowers.
Yep.
And you can tell by how he first reacts around Starlight. You can tell by how he reacts around his wife's son,
Ryan.
Yeah,
like, yeah, you can just see it. Like he's messed up in the head because for the last 8 years, superheroes are the bane of his existence. And he's going through all these notions because he's like, wait, not only is my wife alive, she has a baby by Homelander. Like, this is the worst Mario episode of all time for him. Like, this is absolutely horrible. And it's happening in like rapid speed. And he keeps waking up in places where he doesn't know where he is. Like, he's just got a lot going on. And I think it was really good because they showed, the 7 is bad, but also Butcher isn't exactly a saint or what we would call a good guy.
Yeah, by no means is Butcher a good guy at all. And one thing we did find out also in episode 4 was that Stormfront is not exactly who she says she is. She has actually been around for quite some time. And we find out that she was Lady Liberty. And Lady Liberty was not a good superhero because she it was found out that there was another person that she actually killed in cold blood that was African American, and his sister just happened to be in the back seat and saw it, but Lady Liberty didn't know. And you know, this woman had carried on to this for like 30 or 40 years, something like that. And Mother's Milk and Hughie and Starlight found her, and she told her the whole story, and it was like, what are we really going up against here? And I thought that was a crazy, scary revelation. I felt like a lot of the episodes I've seen made me feel feelings of fear. it wasn't just like unpredictability. It was like, yo, I'm fearing for these people's lives because I don't know what they're really up against.
Yeah.
At any time, like any of the characters, I didn't know really what they were up against. Even in the second episode, like when the brother of Kamiko like was just having his hands like this, I was like, wait, okay, does he have powers of metal? Like, what can he actually really do? You just don't know.
Right.
And I thought, like, right here in this scene right here, I thought they could easily have gotten like something broken or killed right then and there. And Butcher, again, like you were saying, like his prejudice against Soups almost killed Kamiko's brother. And he feels justified in everything that he does. But I don't know, man. First 4 episodes have been insanely awesome to me. I've loved them. Is there anything we're forgetting?
Talk about the doppelganger. That didn't even come up.
Yeah.
I'll
let you talk about that one. Go for it.
I was hoping y'all would forget.
Well, for me, the thing that threw me off when it first came out, like my reaction, I was like, she's alive. Like, and in my head, I was like, it was somehow somebody else. And it did not cross my head until like he was laying on her lap. And all of a sudden he changed. And literally I was like, what? It's just my
I felt like she was I felt like she was dead and that maybe he was just out there in this log cabin just imagining stuff. Like
I was thinking the same thing.
Like he was just being taken to another world every time he drank that milk. Like, I don't know. But like when it turned when she started coughing or whatnot and turned back into doppelganger, I was like, oh. Like they can't stress enough how mentally unstable Homelander is. And they're like, oh, you thought he was crazy? Well, now he's even crazier. Like, I'm telling you, like I kept waiting for him to just turn into Joaquin Phoenix. Like he kept getting crazier and crazier and crazier. Like, I'm like, man, this is not the person that needs to be the most powerful superhero. Like, I'm shook right now because now you have him, and the second most powerful superhero probably is either Black Noir or Stormfront. And I'm like, we're in a very, very, very stressful situation right now.
No, that's absolutely true. And then talking about his mental instability, was it episode 3 where he decides to go and crash the press conference?
No, that was episode 4, because that was I think after he did that, wasn't that when the hashtag "You're So White" started coming out?
Was that episode 4 too? Good.
Yeah, episode 4 for me was
that's right. Because episode 3 ended with them. That's right. Yep. Man, episode 4 was lit then.
Yeah.
Because when he went and was like, "Oh, they talking about me? They're crashing. Oh, wait, what?" And like he got there, and I was kind of like, bruh, if y'all don't stop fussing at this man, please calm down. Like, everybody just chill.
Yeah.
And like the officer was like, you don't speak for us. You don't speak for us. And stuck his middle finger up at him. I was like, fam, you about to get got, bruh. Like, and then when he did it, I was like, oh my God, what does this mean? Like,
man, look.
I was like, did he really just do that? And I found myself trying to root for Homelander to not break. And that's weird. That's good writing because I was like, honestly, he can do what he really wants to do.
Whatever
he really could. Yeah. He could do anything he wants. And it's like, at the same time, it's like, no, there's a way that you got to do this. And this is not it. Please just leave. He was like, you all are superheroes. Goodbye.
I did find it interesting, though, which I think is kind of a new thing. Throughout the first 4 episodes, the fear that Homelander was bringing upon everyone. Like, I think it was episode 4 where he did. He got Starlight in the elevator. Yeah. And right there, I was kind of like, whoa, they're going Game of Thrones on us, like killing main characters, Because I literally felt he was going to kill her at that point. So for me, seeing that he didn't kill her there, I was like, ooh, but just the fear. Yep, that's the scene right there. Like you could just feel it. Like it was just such a tense scene. Yeah. So that one is definitely just for me, a neat thing, just kind of seeing that transition of, going from psycho to like a calculated, instilling fear in all these people.
Yeah. What's going on, Lucas?
What's going on?
You are shining bright like starlight, bro. What's good with you?
Hey, I'm just noticing that, man. It's like a holy glow upon me all of a sudden. I don't know what's going on here.
We're gonna put him in the thinnest frame.
Hey, Lucas, I think you might have to tag out with me because I gotta hop off.
Hey, I got you. That makes perfect sense.
Hey, yeah. Thanks for taking my spot on the 4. But yeah.
Keaton, closing thoughts on the first 4 episodes. Closing thoughts.
This show is extremely good at leaving you hanging and absolutely foaming at the mouth for the next episode. Y'all hang in there, keep watching because it only gets better. That's all I gotta say without But y'all have a good night. Love y'all. Take care. Hit me up if you want to chat about the boys with me at Keaton7 on Twitter. But besides that, yeah, it's nuts. Y'all have a good night, okay?
All right, Keaton.
Later.
All right, so Lucas.
That was a heck of a trade out there. See how this works? Symmetry, man. Symmetry is great.
So Lucas, what are your thoughts on the first? What we're doing is we're breaking down the first 4 episodes, and we pretty much covered all bases. But what were the things about the first 4 episodes that caught your eye that you really wanted to bring up?
I know most people. Yeah, I know most people would say Stormfront because that's the one that gets the most attention because of the way she jumps out on the show. But for me, the thing that stood out the most was Homelander's need to have a family, need to be accepted through his son.
Yeah,
that's what stuck out the most to me because while it was hinted to at the end of the first season, like I love the way they really go into detail about Homelander in general, and we see how much he wants his son to be like him, and how much his son is so different he doesn't know how to react to it. It shows the most powerful person on the show being powerless, and that's what I really enjoyed about these first 4 episodes, along with him pushing his son off the roof as he did, which was a hilarious moment. It was hilarious when it happened, but then you see the realization of it when the boy gets up and he's not hurt, but he's so mad that even happened. I think at that point he's removing himself from what Homelander wants him to be, and Homelander doesn't know how to react to that. Like that's all he wanted was someone. Well, he raped her to get a child for someone who would love him unconditionally, and now you have this kid who absolutely hates you. And the first 4 episodes really pinpoint on how Homelander is dealing with that, as him finding compassion in someone else is how he deals with it, instead of dealing with the crux of the issue is you don't have a relationship with this kid and you don't know what to do about it. I also like the deep Scientology stuff. That was that is interesting. I would say for the first 4 episodes, those could be like the 2 biggest things for me, because unfortunately the other characters are still rounding out at this point. So none of them reveal what later becomes revealed in a series, and that's what works because this show it's fast paced, but it slow walks you through the character development, and that's what you kind of want out of these shows. It's something that's going to slow walk you through.
I do like that they don't rush. You are 100% right. They had a lot of opportunities to rush some of these storylines, and the way that they've dragged it out. No, that I didn't even think about that, but yeah, they definitely took their time. Realistically, now looking back through the whole season, like with just about every single character is, you have a really good backstory that, you know, you kind of tie through. So yeah, I never even thought about it that way. I like that.
Yeah, and Lucas, I'm glad that you brought up that side of Homelander, because it brings up a whole nother point. Is that yes, he did what he did to her, but he also sees the significance of her imparting something into the son's life that he didn't have. And as messed up and mentally, emotionally he knows that she's needed for him to be development where he needs to be. I think that he like the son.
For him to be closer to being human. Because that's part of Homelander's issue, is that he never had the love of a parent, and especially of a mother. So he doesn't know how that feels to have it. And he knows if my son doesn't get it, he's, as much as he wants his child to be him, he doesn't want him to end up like him.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's the paradox of a lot of people that deal with, you know, parental issues growing up. And specifically men, when it comes to, like, you know, he's looking at, like, it's just certain small things. Like, he's like, man, you're babying this kid. But then it's kind of like, you know what, you also are caring for him in ways that I am not capable.
Yes.
And I think that from a psychological standpoint, it says a lot about Homelander that I didn't pick up until I went back through the first season. You remember, like, when he kept on, like, looking at the baby, you know, that old girl had, and it was just so, like, upset with the baby. And I was like, what? Why is he so upset with this baby? Mm-hmm. And then it was like, the baby's getting what he never got.
Exactly.
And he's just so messed up in the head that he's like, that's my maternal figure. I might have feelings for her, but that's my maternal figure. She's getting all the attention that I deserve, you know?
Well, they showed that also in parts by him, I'm trying to say this right, suckling at her teat. I think I'm saying that right, with not being too vulgar. I think that's the best way to put it. Suckling at her teat. That's the best way to put it without being too vulgar. And they show that throughout season one. Yeah. And
the milk.
You think it's weird, but you don't fully understand why he's doing that. And by the time, and again, that's what comes along with slow walking character development and doing it well. Where now we're looking at Homelander season 2 and we're fully understanding everything with him in season 1, and it rounds it out, and you're like, wow, this takes great writing to set that type of thing up through multiple seasons.
I completely agree. I'm glad you brought that up, Lucas. We did not bring that up at all. So that
look, hey, I'm good for something.
You contributed. You definitely contributed to the conversation.
Along with me looking like just glowing.
It really is weird, but we're not gonna go there. Anyway, we're gonna close out. Closing thoughts on the last 4 episodes. Anything more specific that people should be paying attention to? That, I mean, it's full spoilers, so we're gonna close it out.
You said the last 4 or the first 4?
First four.
I heard the same thing.
We can't talk about that. We cannot talk about the last 4. No, nobody can.
Okay, I was like, we're going to be sitting here for a little bit longer.
Hey, I was about to say, I'm about to go in on these last 4.
Boom.
I think for me, the thing from these first 4 episodes that really, you know, kind of made it for me was seeing the whole Stormfront versus Homelander, that whole kind of battle where, you know, you had that going on, and then just kind of fleshing out a little bit more of the actual boys, like their storyline. For me, those were kind of the 2 biggest kind of drivers that, you know, for this back half of this season. You know, obviously I know what happens, but for the people watching, it's going to be exciting kind of seeing how all of that plays out and how they tie it all together. Because I think with these first 4 episodes, this was set up, like we were talking about episode 4 for a big chunk here. And it's phenomenal how much information they put on each episodes, where you can rewatch them and still get something new from it.
Yeah.
But I would say, yeah, for me, it was the two biggest ones, Homelander versus Stormfront. I thought that was so well done. And then definitely the story of the boys, like just building up that, you know, them in hiding and now them being wanted. I thought that was probably my best parts.
Yeah. Lucas, what about you?
What sticks out the most is, I think the first word weirdly that comes to mind is totem. If anybody remembers Inception with the totem that Leonardo DiCaprio had spinning at the end to keep him connected to the real world, Homelander and Billy have human totems in this season of The Boys. Like point. Billy's totem is Hughie. He keeps him connected to the real world and him not going off and being a complete waste of a psychopath. And Homelander's totem is his son. He's using his son to keep him in line, keep him controlled in a bit. That's why his interactions with Billy's wife is the way it is, where we know Homelander can just kill her in an instant and get it over with, but he knows he can't do it.
Yeah.
Because he needs that connection. He needs that kid to keep him grounded. As much as Billy knows he can destroy Hughie at any given time, but he needs to keep him connected. And also, again, along with the story of the rest of the boys, because that's the build-up we get in these first 4 episodes, is learning more about them and what makes them tick. I think in season 1, we only learned, and I don't know why, out of all the boys, I can't get his name.
Mother's Milk, MM.
Yep. How did you know that one?
He's the hardest one to remember.
Hey, but in season 1, we got a lot more story about him and his family.
Yeah.
And I love the point that we getting focused on everyone else this season while still integrating him in the comical side that we got from everyone else in season 1. Yeah. Like that's what the 4 episodes do a great job of. Again, it's nothing but building characters. They gave you 4 exciting episodes of character development. Do you know how hard that is to do? I've only known one other show, and one other show, particularly in this genre, that's been able to pull that off. And that's a great show. So for the boys to be able to do it is amazing, and it's amazing setup for these first 4 episodes. Amazingly, again, for everybody who's seen it, the first 4 episodes are just a setup. You have seen nothing yet. This is a setup, and it's a beautiful setup.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think my only thing is, I think one character we didn't bring up was Giancarlo Esposito's Stan. This man, the first time he has a conversation with Homelander, I realized how much power this man really actually had. Because Homelander was kind of having a conversation with, like, yo, I don't like your tone. Like, I feel like I can handle it this way. I don't know what y'all getting at. And he just starts to go off on this rant and this tale about the history of Vought. And I was like, yo, Stan low-key is pulling every string. And he is unmatched at that.
Jesus.
Because the realization is when you, man, I can't say it yet, but let's just say when you find out what he's done, who he's brought into the fold and why, and what he's willing to compromise and who he's willing to burn down, you realize, like, some of these characters are some very vicious and malicious people, but the character design is so masterfully crafted that, man, there's so much story that can be told, man. It's really awesome. Like, it's a lot to unpack. And you guys are not ready for what happens next. All I can say is tune in to episode 5. You cannot miss episode 5.
Yeah, episode 5 is a turning point.
Yep.
That's a huge turning point. Man.
We could literally do a whole hour-long discussion on just episode 5. That's the best way I can put it.
Yep. So,
anyway, I think this is it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Where can we find you guys on social media?
You can find me on YouTube on Also Fast Reviews. I would say Twitter, but I Twitter just never works for me. So you can find me on YouTube.
Boy, does that sound so familiar with Twitter. Listen, I think my Twitter handle is let_me_B_G82. I think that's my Twitter handle. Again, I'm not big with the Twitter. I'm gonna call it like the old people do, the Twitter. I'm not exact. See, Sam knows it.
This is it, you guys. I don't know if y'all can see it, but this is it.
But other than that, clearly you can catch me on JVS. Movie reviews, television reviews. I have a show that I do on JVS and Big Gold Belt called The Rundown, which Sam was a co-star on last week. So yeah, you can catch me on that.
Yeah, that was interesting. You guys do not want to miss that one. Oh my gosh. On that note, we will be back for part 2 of episode 5 through 8 rundown. Well, not called rundown. I don't want to copyright anything.
Wow, yes, because someone has a show named The Rundown.
We're gonna go and unpack episode 5 through 8 on a part 2 of The Boys season 2 a little bit later on. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell button, and we will be talking about more later. Peace, guys.